Thank you guys. This is great. A full and crowded and way too male room, but this is baseball, I suppose. So, not a shock. I'm Jeff Passan. I think my title is Senior MLB Insider at ESPN. I've been with the company for about 3 years now. Before that, I was at Yahoo Sports covering baseball for another 14 or so years. And before that, the Kansas City Star and Fresno Bee. So sort of been all around the United States doing this journalism thing. Went to school at Syracuse University, graduated back in 2002. I live in Kansas City now with my wife, 2 sons, a dog, and a collection of baseball t-shirts like this one with Fred McGriff on it that I'm wearing right now. That's totally rad. I'm happy to answer any and every question that you guys have, and whether it's about journalism, whether it's about numbers, whether it's about baseball, whether it's about food, whatever you want to ask about, I'm an open book and looking forward to this.
All right, cool. Who wants to be the first question of the day? Matt, you can come up. Yeah, this camera, I'd back up a little bit. There you go. You're good.
Hi, Jeff. I just wanted to know what your journey was like to get to ESPN, because currently I am a senior in aviation management and have recently realized that I would much rather be a sports journalist, and I would like some advice on that.
Well, I'm sorry. It sounded like something just hit my house there. That's great. Congratulations, first off, on going into a dying industry. I give you all kinds of credit for that. That's fantastic. In all seriousness, I have the best job in the world. I mean, I get to talk and write about baseball, and like, what's better than that? It was in my blood. And, when I say that, I grew up in Cleveland, and my father worked at the Plain Dealer for 42 years. So I would go downtown sometimes with him and visit him in the newsroom. And, when I realized I was topping out at 5'9" with like reasonably okay athleticism, I knew my sports career was not going to be going too far, but that I could write about it and eventually could talk about it. And I never had aspirations to work at ESPN. Like, that's the God's honest truth. I thought that I was going to be working at a newspaper as a sports columnist. Like, that was the goal. And that may sound funny to you guys because you're in a generation where the general sports columnist is almost like a dead thing at this point, just a person who opines on sports in a city and is kind of the voice of the city. Just because of what's happened to newspapers, that's not around anymore. But when I was coming up, all I wanted to do was work for newspapers, and I got to do that at the Fresno Bee, which was a tremendous learning experience. I don't know if anyone here is from Fresno. If you are, sorry. Honestly, it's like such a great place to ply your journalism trade and to learn things, because all sorts of weird shit happens in Fresno, like all the time. The Fresno State basketball team, which I covered when I was there, in the past, they had a dude who went around with samurai swords, and they had all kinds of academic fraud scandals. My first year, covered a guy who's in jail for murder for the rest of his life. Like, crazy stories happen there. So got my feet wet there. And at 23 years old, a guy named Mike Fannin, who was a sports editor at the Kansas City Star, hired me to be a national baseball writer. I'd never covered baseball aside from like 2 Orioles games when I was an intern at the Washington Post. And I got a national job when I looked like I was 12. Like, I walked into the clubhouse one day, and a player like handed me like a pair of pants because he thought I was a clubby and that I was going to take them to get washed. So I had no business in that job at that age with that lack of experience, but I made the most of it and ended up at Yahoo. And from there, just sort of I mean, I don't want to sit here and like say I worked harder than everyone. That's why I'm in the position that I'm in, because that's not true. It was a number of things. It's the fact that I grew up in the industry and knew it. It's the fact that I'm a white male in America, and that goes a very long way to helping out, especially in this industry that is so populated by it. But there was definitely an element where there was never an assignment that I turned down. There was never a story I wanted to avoid. And, trying to write about the sport as fearlessly and honestly as I could, I think really helped get me to where I am right now. In terms of getting into the journalism industry, to me, it's so much about reps. I was 15 years old working for a local newspaper covering like high school games. And like there was a volleyball tournament downtown in Cleveland one time that I covered. And listen, like no matter what job you're in, and this is going to apply to everyone here, you're going to fuck up with things. You just are. You are going to make mistakes. And the younger you are and the more reps you get, the earlier you get those mistakes out of the way. I don't think there is any training for a job as good as the actual on the job training. And so go and write, go and read, go and learn, go and find people whose work you admire and study it and understand it. Why do you like it? What draws you to it? Become a voracious reader, and not just of sports writing, of baseball writing. Read history, read science, because what this job turns out to be is, as much as you have to know baseball, you have to know law, you have to know medicine, you have to know biomechanics, you have to know all these different disparate things. And if you're able to write intelligently and ask the right questions on a wide variety of subjects, you're going to be in a much better position than those of your colleagues who just aren't quite as curious and want to just do ball and that's it.
Cool, thank you. Next question. I saw your hand first. So if you guys just got here, if you have a question, raise your hand and then come up to this Elmo and you can look.
Is there seriously like an Elmo there?
It is, yeah. It's
That's
like
rad. Good for you.
Meant to be right here.
All right, I love it.
There you go.
Hi, Jeff. I just want to say that I'm really inspired by you. I'm a huge fan of your work. My question is about the baseball collective bargaining agreement. As we all know, that's expiring after this season. So I've got kind of three questions to go along with that. First question is, what chance do you think that there is going to be a strike coming up to the 2022 season? If there is a strike, how late would the season be delayed? And then third question, what kind of new things can we expect from the collective bargaining agreement? Have you heard anything that, is more likely to be put in, more likely to be taken out? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to be Akil Badu, look at you. I'm going to be very pedantic here. There's a 0% chance of a strike. There's a very good chance of a lockout, because that's once the season is over, the owners would be locking out the players at that point. That being said, and maybe this is just me being an optimist and thinking that the baseball industry is in a place right now where, and I don't know if I am being myopic when I say this or if I'm stuck inside the bubble. I feel like baseball is, if not like having a moment right now, then maybe on the verge of one. I feel like Shohei Ohtani is a genuinely transcendent type of player, and that Fernando Tatis Jr. is doing things that we haven't seen since Junior Griffey in terms of engaging the public and being known in a sporting industry that's so dominated by the NFL and the stars from the NBA. I feel like what Ronald Acuña can do and Juan Soto and Vladdy Guerrero, I just named those five guys right there. Those are guys around whom you can build a sport, and you have all of this goodwill and all of these great things going on in the game, in spite of some people seemingly, who can't help but step on their own dick, and bring baseball into the spotlight in a negative sense. Well, we've got these great players who are doing great things. Are the players in baseball, and by baseball I mean the commissioner's office and the owners, really going to potentially blow that? And the optimist in me, the romantic in me says, no, of course they're not going to. Why would they do that? Why would they kill the golden goose? You can't. You should know better, because not just in the short term, but the long term too, you're going to be better off for it. I also thought they should have played 90 or 100 games last year during the pandemic, and they ended up playing 60. And they ended up playing 60 because they couldn't come together on something that was pretty easy in the end to come together on, and should have been negotiated much earlier than it was. So if there is a labor stoppage this offseason, and I anticipate that there will be, I think that it would last up into the cusp of spring training, maybe into spring training a little bit. But the notion that they're going to lose games for this, that they're going to lose a significant amount of games, I just think that there's too much to lose, and it's a mutually assured destruction situation where, nobody wins. So I hope in the end that everybody gets what they're looking for, and what they're looking for. They've gone back and forth, and there was a proposal from Major League Baseball to the Players Association, and it included a number of different elements. They've been talking about raising the minimum salary. They've been talking about free agency at a fixed date, potentially. They've been talking about having a floor and a lower ceiling. They've been talking about all of these different things, but they're just talks at this point. And the reason that I'm not lending a whole lot of credence to them is because first offers in any kind of negotiation typically look nothing like what the final offer is. And if you're not willing to move, and I think both parties here are willing to move, then you're not going to get anything done. So right now, I think it's a little bit too early to be sitting here, to be going all doomsday. Honestly, if there's a lockout and it happens early in December when the CBA expires, I think there's going to be some panic among fans, but I'd like to think that the fans in this room, who are really generally, I believe, knowledgeable baseball fans and understand the sport, will see the date that matters more as being around February 10th, when players report to spring training. And if there's not something in place by then, yeah, you can start getting a little panicky at that point.
Cool. All right, next question. Yes.
Torkelson rules, by the way.
All right. So my question is, with content creation and like the DMCA rules and the blackouts, do you think there's ever going to be a change that allows like smaller Twitter accounts to repost video clips without getting taken down constantly, and for people to use the MLB at Bat app to actually watch games like they pay for? That's a question.
How old are you guys? What year can you give me a sense of what year you guys typically were born? So Nationals jersey, I don't know your name, but what year were you born?
I was born 2000. I think the range is like 99 to 2003, if I had to guess.
All right. So a good number of you were not reading when I started working at Yahoo. And very early on, I would write about the blackouts because I thought that they were bullshit, and I thought that it was stupid that genuinely large metropolitan areas like Las Vegas, for example, were blacked out from 6 teams. Entire states like Iowa were blacked out from 6 teams. But not just that, other markets not being able to watch the teams that they root for when there's not a cable provider in the area that will give them the service that they need. It is the stupidest thing that baseball does, because it is actively telling your potential customers, we do not want you. I still can't fathom how they do that. And yet I look at the business side of it, and what is the lifeblood, everyone, of the baseball business in 2021. We can sit here and say it's the fans. We can sit here and say that it's ticket sales, that it's beer sales, that it's merchandise, that it's advertising, that it's sponsorship. No, Major League Baseball is a sport that is buoyed by local television contracts. And these local television operators that are paying, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars for the rights of the games want to have exclusivity. And so baseball is put in this position where it says, well, we need to placate our partners here, but at what cost? And the unfortunate part of this is that it's obvious by the way that baseball has handled this, that the answer to its question is that it would be costlier to go away from the model that it has right now with regional sports networks that have exclusivity than it would be to go out and get fans who cannot have access because of blackouts. And God, I haven't seen the numbers, so I can't sit here and say that's so incredibly short-sighted, that's so silly. All I know is when I'm selling a product, I'm trying to sell it to as many people as I possibly can. And if I am limiting the number of people to whom I can sell that product, whether it is through blackouts, whether it's through the internet or social media, and limiting what people can post on there, like there's nothing better than engagement on social media. And it's not engagement on individual accounts. It's engagement about the sport across the entire landscape. Baseball, because of what it is, should dominate on social media. Baseball, Scott Boras said this one time, baseball is the only sport out there that has 162 days of the year where you have 5 hours of original content. You have the pregame show, you have the game, you have the postgame show. It is a television episode that is different with drama every single day. You have no idea what's going to happen. And the fact that baseball can't sell that, and I mean baseball writ large, can't sell itself as this amazing television series, this amazing book that's playing out over 162 chapters, and that they're not encouraging people to go and post everything that they want online without fear of repercussions, I think it's not the thing, but it might be the biggest thing holding the sport back at this point.
Thank you. Cool. Let's go over there. I saw your hand, Lesson. And I like your shirt.
Oh my God, you guys came correct today.
Right here.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Hey, I got two questions. So one of them is, do you think that we're going to get maybe expansion teams? And if so, where would they be?
Oh boy. Expansion feels kind of inevitable because, we're looking at $1 billion+ franchise fees, and we're looking at potential realignment, and we're looking at all of these things that can come together under a new plan and a new system. And, the sport, listen, when the sport wants to make some money, there's a very easy way to do it. You go out and you get a few $1 billion in expansion fees. I think a lot of it, though, depends on what happens with the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays. Las Vegas is a clear expansion choice if the A's don't move there. If they do, that takes care of them. The Rays, is their plan with Montreal actually going to work? They still want to go and play half the year in Tampa Bay and half the year in Montreal. If that doesn't happen, do the people who are in Montreal feel like they have a team and a fan base that can successfully sustain it for an entire year as opposed to half of the year? You've got a city like Nashville that I think has a very good argument for having a big league team. They've shown that they can support major professional sports teams. You got a city like Portland, a city like Austin, Texas. This never gets brought up, and I don't think the Mets and Yankees would ever allow it. I think that the idea of a third New York team may be kind of a little bit of overkill, but man, a third New York team would be very interesting. And by the way, I have not heard a single thing about that. I don't find that to be realistic. It's just kind of interesting to me. I mean, is expansion good for baseball? Like that's the question that is somebody who has no allegiance to any particular team would ask. You know, does this mean that we're adding 64A players to the big leagues? Because if so, you know, when you dilute the game with more players, it is a demonstrably potentially worse game. And is that worth whatever MLB is going to be deriving in expansion fees? At the same time, I feel like players are better than they've ever been before, and that you know, particular organizations are better than others. But I think everyone right now, just the baseball industrial complex, creates better baseball players than it ever has through training and through the knowledge that we have that comes from both the physiological elements that we've learned as well as the statistical cues that add to training. So there are a lot of different factors in play when it comes to expansion, but in the end, money talks, and money in this situation, I think, is going to eventually lead to expansion.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? We'll try to go all the way to the back. First one back with their hand raised.
I see your sprint speed right here.
What should I look into this?
Yeah, this one right here. Back up a little bit.
There you go. Hi, Jeff. My name is Brandon, and it's kind of funny since you already talked about all these guys, but if you had to pick between Soto, Vladdy, Tatis, and Acuña for their careers, who's your pick?
Yeah, go ahead, walk away, you dick. Unbelievable. Did he include Ohtani in there? Was it the 5 or was it just the four young
We're all in there.
all right. Oh God. Okay, so I haven't actually answered this question in my own head, so I'm going to talk it through out loud and try and figure it out. I avoid difficult questions because I can be a very indecisive person, and you can tell that by the fact that you asked me a question and 1 minute later I haven't even started addressing it. Okay, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Probably has the most raw power. And I'm excluding Ohtani, by the way, because he's 27. And I feel like those extra 4 years with Acuña and 5 years with the other guy, if we're talking for remainder of career, probably matters. Though if Ohtani is going to be regularly putting up 10-win seasons, then, that might get thrown out the window. Vladdy probably has the best raw. Hit tool, I'm probably going to take Soto there. I mean, it's so difficult not to say Tatis because he plays shortstop. Like that's the thing I keep going back to. Acuña could play center, but I don't know how much longer. He's probably a right fielder long term. Vladdy's a first baseman. As great as the bat is, and it's him and I feel like him and Soto, you can argue who's going to be the better bat, and because of Soto's just absolutely unbelievable plate discipline, I probably lean slightly toward him. But because Vladdy's at first base, I just can't say him. It's a first baseman. Like, I understand there's value at first base, but he's never going to be a guy who's going to kill you on the base paths and the position he plays. Give him to me. Like, if I can have him, just not over Acuña, Tatis, and Soto. Soto actually has been shockingly good in the outfield this year, better than he's been in past seasons. And by the way, I am not somebody who thinks that publicly available defensive metrics are any good, and that's no insult to people out there who do them. I just feel like they are inconsistent among one another to the point where I have trouble understanding which to trust. The one that dovetails most with my eye test and with Scout's eye test is probably outs above average, which is StatCast metric. And there, trust me, there's utility to DRS and to UZR, but single year defensive metrics, especially, I just don't trust at all, which makes me a little skeptical of the wins above replacement statistic, but that's a whole nother thing we can get into. Point being, Juan Soto has passed both the eye test and the metric test this year. And so I think his glove has improved. But man, Acuña being the kind of threat he is on the base paths, and him playing in right field at the level he does, a position with aplomb, it's, you know what? I'm actually going to go with Soto over Acuña just because the on base. I'm such an on base nerd. I don't apologize for it at all. Anybody who doesn't think on base is life can kiss my ass. So it comes down eventually to Fernando Tatis and Juan Soto. And in the end, I'm going to go with the shortstop. And I understand Tatis is playing outfield this year. And I understand that there are some people who think that he should move there in future. Fernando Tatis Jr. sees himself as a shortstop long term. And the only thing that gives me pause about him is the fact that he's been hurt as much as he has. And that is something that is very concerning, especially with a younger guy. But when he's out there, he is dynamic on the base paths. He is dynamic at the plate. He has the ability to be dynamic in the field, and the positional boost that you get playing just a gem spot like shortstop, that to me, I think ultimately is the differentiator. The real answer though is give me any of the four, and I feel like I'll be in a better position than just about any franchise in baseball.
All right, cool. Jeff, we got a lot of hands. Do you want to pick someone who's raising their hand right now that you can see?
Honestly, my vision sucks and you guys all look blurry. So I trust you, Jeremy. Go ahead. You just be fair.
I'll go back there. Yeah, you.
Cubs bias.
Yes.
Hi, how's it going? So when I was younger, when I started getting into baseball, and like I saw, tweets and stuff about like sources and reports saying, so I actually looked up when I was young, how to become a source. I didn't find any good stuff. But like, can you kind of explain the process of kind of how a trade or a signing starts kind of coming out into the news and kind of, coming to you and your colleagues, and then when it hits Twitter and so on?
I think it goes back to sources, and I know that's, that word is kind of like been memed a little bit, and I appreciate that, and it cracks me up. But the reality is I couldn't do my job, period, if there weren't people out there who understood that breaking news is a huge part of the job for me. And for a long time, I actually avoided it and sneered at it and looked down on it. And, I would look at people who did transactional journalism and, call them transaction monkeys. And I was derisive and rude. And I didn't understand that for all of the glory that transactional journalists get, and I understand this is like a very limited world in which we get that glory, but for all of that there is, the beauty of doing that end of the job, to me at least, is the doors that it opens in other areas. And I say that because I'd like to think, or I hope a lot of you either read the story or watched the documentary we did on Drew Robinson. I got into journalism to do stories like that, to tell stories about people and about life and about the things that sometimes we're afraid to address because they're difficult subjects or because they've been third rails in the past. And it is that kind of story that fills my heart and makes me feel like I'm not just contributing something that's nascent, something that quite often has the shelf life of a snap. This is a story that's going to last for a really long time, and I think impact a lot of people. And the reason that I was able to tell that story is because of somebody who I met while trying to chase down a trade. And this person I've kept in touch with over years, and he introduced me to Drew and told me about what had happened with Drew. And that never would have happened if not for the fact that a guy got traded about 10 years ago. And so, it's about relationships. Like this is something good for everyone here to understand about life, not just about journalism. Like, just try and treat people well. Try and be honest with them. Try and care for them. Try and look out for them. And I don't mean that in a way as a journalist where I'm doing anybody favors, but I also think the reason that people do talk to me is hopefully that they like me. Like I totally acknowledge the fact that there are people out there who see that I'm on TV and that I have a bunch of social media followers and feel like I can be useful to them or their career or whatever. And I tend to have a pretty good smell test for that. But I think people ultimately talk to me because they can sense that I care about the work that I do, that I care about the game, that I care about people who are doing the right thing, and that I can be a conduit to tell those kinds of stories. And so they get to know me, I get to know them. They trust me with information that I'm going to be honest, that I'm going to be accurate, and that I'm going to be comprehensive. And if I can do all three of those things while maintaining the level of ethics that I try to, and not being compromised like so many journalists can be, then I feel like I'm doing my job and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And when I wake up every morning, that's all I can ask for.
Okay. Next question.
I need to give shorter answers. I'm sorry. I talk so much. God.
We grew a lot with club membership this year. So
yeah, clearly. Obviously, me showing up was a big boon. Way to go.
First meeting, Jeff, you'll be there. Alex, do you want to come up?
Hi, Jeff. So I had a question. The first one is a lighter question, and the second one is a more insightful question. But my friends and I wanted to know how that ratio felt today. I wanted to say you're speaking for a big side of the internet when you did that. And then my second question is, what can you do what did you do, and what should students in college now do to prepare themselves for a career in journalism?
As for your first question, I assume you guys have seen the emoji with the zipper across the face like that. The second question, boy, I mean, I still am, but like early in college, I was such a dork. Like the first day I got to college, I walked from my dorm up to 744 Ostrom Avenue in Syracuse, and it was the house where the Daily Orange was. And I went in and I introduced myself to a guy named Pete Thamel. And I don't know if any of you guys follow college sports, but Pete works at Yahoo Sports and is fantastic at his job. And Pete was the sports editor at the DO. And I pretty much said, I want to write for you. I will do anything. And the first story I wrote was about a women's tennis player named Michelle Nevaklovska. And the second story I wrote was about a Syracuse football freshman who had played soccer for the first 3 years of high school. and decided to go play football as a senior, and was lightly recruited out of Connecticut, and his name was Dwight Freeney. So like lucking into writing about a Hall of Famer on your second story, I mean, that's kind of what journalism is sometimes. It's pounding the pavement. It is, walking until the soles of your shoe are worn down. It's asking questions and being curious and following every single little detail, and understanding that when you put in the work, you're also going to run into some luck sometimes. And journalism, it's a really hard business in a number of respects. It's hard to break into. Like, it was tough to break into when I was younger. Now, when there are half the newspapers and probably half the jobs that there were back then, it's even more difficult. It's hard on your social life. I mean, sometimes you feel like all you're doing is working, and the answer is, yeah, you are, especially when you're younger, especially when you're trying to establish yourself. And it being hard on your social life, it can be hard on your relationships, it can be hard on your mental health, it can be hard on all of these things. But as you guys get older, you're going to start recognizing that it's not just journalism that way. That's just kind of life in general. It can suck hard, it can suck the life out of you, but you do it, hopefully, and I hope this is the case for all of you in your jobs. You do it because you love it. And I still love what I do. I've seen a lot of people get burned out in their jobs, and I look at it objectively and wonder how I haven't been at this point, because there are some times when, I'll be like, I honestly can't tell you the last day off I had. I don't really remember the last vacation I took. I mean, it is a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year job. Like, I work on Christmas, mainly because I'm Jewish, but also like the job sometimes like necessitates that you work on Christmas. So that's what I do. And if you're getting into journalism, you have to do so really understanding that the job is going to ask a lot of you. And if you're not ready to answer that question in an affirmative fashion, it doesn't mean that that you have failed. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It might just mean that the job's not right for you, and that's okay. Like, the notion of someone staying in the same career for decades now is like hysterical to me, because I just don't think it's a reality for most. I'm extremely lucky that I have a job that I like, and I have a job where they want me, and I have a job where I feel like I'm okay at it.
Go to the Brave shirt over there.
Hey Jeff, so I just have a couple questions about the trade deadline, or this past trade deadline. Did you have any moves that like really surprised you? And then what was your favorite move made by a team?
I swear, like, this is not like a humble brag, but the morning of the last, no, this is a humble brag, fuck it. The morning of the last day of deadline day, I wrote down where I thought everyone was going, and I had Baez to Mets, I had Bryant to Giants. I had all of them except Kimbrel to White Sox, because that one shocked me. And it shocked me because you don't see teams that have closers, generally speaking, go out and trade for closers. I love the move, by the way. And even though Kimbrel's got knocked around a little since going to Chicago, I think it's the sort of thing it's the reason why I think the White Sox are the favorite in the American League right now. It's that, and their lineup's absurd. And as long as they can get Lance Lynn and Carlos Rodon healthy, I think they're going to be in good shape. Let's see, moves that really helped. God, there were so many of them. And It's funny, the Yankees ever since the deadline have been awesome, even though Anthony Rizzo and Joey Gallo kind of haven't. Chris Bryant's numbers have been well above average since he went to San Francisco. But to me, as much as anything, I think he just added depth into that lineup. It's a deep team in terms of how low the floor is. Like they're all high floor players on the Giants, but in terms of ceiling, Buster Posey's been awesome when he's playing. Brandon Crawford's been playing out of his mind this year. Brandon Belt's been really good, but in the end, I think Bryant really rounded out that lineup well. And I applaud the Giants for going out and getting him, and getting him at a fairly reasonable cost with Canario and Killian.
All right, next question. We'll go right here.
Hey, Jeff. So I'm a Mets fan. Unfortunate, I know. I want to ask you and see what you and other MLB insiders thought about the ownership transition, and what I anticipate you saying is not very great. What can they do to fix it? Thanks.
I mean, look, I think going from the Wilpons, who treated a New York-based team like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, not like the Royals, but they never played like a New York team is expected to play, which is with all of the top free agents and going out and spending money and turning into this machine. That they never took advantage of that. It was almost like the Mets were a rundown house in a good neighborhood, and they need some sprucing up. And the idea that Steve Cohen was going to come in and immediately he was going to like snap his fingers, and the institutional rot in that organization was going to vanish. This is not like someone where you have mold in your walls and you call up like a remediation specialist and the mold is gone. No, this is stuff that I think for a long time has been in place, whether it's processes, whether it is just generally speaking, the management structure. And more than that, I just think that there has been this pervasive attitude around the organization that they're not the Yankees. And that's a weird identity to have, where you look at yourself as not something instead of something. And so that's going to take a little while to change. And there have been all kinds of unforeseen roadblocks to this point. Jared Porter, they didn't know. And how could they have, something like that was not known around baseball, where Jared Porter was widely beloved by people in front offices and in scouting circles around the game. What happened with Zach Scott today, I don't know the details of it at this point. All I know is that the Mets acting general manager was arrested at 417 for allegedly driving drunk. And details of this thing matter, but they only matter so much. It's the Kumar Rocker situation. When you draft somebody who has had questions about his arm, and even if you do come to an agreement on what his signing bonus is going to be, you got to have a backup plan in place. If you're using your 16th and 18th round pick to take high school guys who you can overpay in case the Rocker deal falls through, then you know what? If you missed out on someone in the 16th or 18th round, oh well, it happens. So did 29 other teams for the 15 previous rounds. Not doing that, I think baseball-wise, was just a very clear and avoidable mistake. And when you're trying to rescue a team from where the Mets have been, you need to be able to avoid mistakes like that. The overhaul in culture is going to take years to happen, but I think Steve Cohen is treating this season like anybody who comes into a business and takes a year to assess it and then says, okay, I see this, this, and this. That's what I want to change. These people fit, these people don't. And I think there's a chance that whether it is in the manager's seat or the front office, that the Mets are going to undergo a pretty significant overhaul at some point soon.
You in the glasses and the black shirt right there, yeah.
You in the glasses.
I was trying to make the person known. I don't know everyone's name.
Yeah, that was kind of rude.
Back up a little bit.
I'm trying to look at myself.
There you go.
Hi, Jeff. I have two questions, not really like too crazy. First off, what's your favorite part of the job? Like you wake up every morning, you're like, I can't wait to do this. And what's your go-to pizza order?
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay. My favorite part of the job is when I get to tell a story that I know is going to change people's lives. I know that sounds like a Hallmark card. That sounds so cheesy, but that's the reality. Like, listen, breaking a trade or a signing is a huge dopamine rush, and it's cool. And I feel like in most cases, that's an earned thing. Like all the time that I've spent talking with people, putting in calls, trying to make sure people around the industry understand that I'm going to do this in a smart and honest and forthright and ethical manner, that kind of thing pays off. And so when I break a story, that feels good, but that's temporary. When I do something like with Drew Robinson, when I do something, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a video piece on Tyler Zombro, who was the AAA player who got hit in the head with a 104-mile-per-hour line drive and was having seizures on the mound. And we did a piece on his recovery. Getting to tell stories about people inside of the game and humanize them and know that there's a connection being made with readers and viewers that goes beyond this feeling that they get in the moment that's instantaneous when there's breaking news. That's a fleeting feeling. I want to do the kind of work that sticks with people. And it's those, when I got into the industry, my first, probably 7 years with Yahoo, it's been a long time with them. That's what I did. I was a storyteller. I didn't dabble much in the breaking news game. And it's something that I don't get to do as much as I used to, as much as I'd like to. But it's something that as I've gotten older, I haven't just gravitated toward it more because of the challenge, but more because I think I actually understand life better than I did when I was trying to write all this flowery shit back in my 20s. And that understanding, that wisdom that comes with age allows you to ask questions that go to the human experience a whole lot better than someone who's younger. And listen, that's not me trying to talk down to this audience, probably the worst audience I could say that to. Being young and stupid's awesome. But like being old and getting to understand and having kids of your own and seeing the world through that different lens, it just affects me in a much more visceral way, I think, than something like breaking a trade does.
Awesome. Thank you.
What was your favorite pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I got it now.
I mean, like, okay. It depends. And if I'm at a really good pizza place, I tend to go very plain. Like if I'm at like Frank Pepe's in New Haven, I'll just go with like the straight up margarita because I love cooking. If I were not a reporter, I would probably be a chef, honestly. And like simplicity of ingredients and techniques like just warms my heart. Like if you can do something with like 4 ingredients and perfect technique and make it taste good, like you're a god. But when it comes to like, if I go to an average pizza place, it's pizza. Like I'll eat anything. Like something with a bunch of meat on it, great. Vegetarian pizza, great. Buffalo chicken pizza, great. Pineapple sucks. Aside from that, like everything's good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, super tall guy. I don't know your name yet, but
Hey Jeff, name's Matt, and as an avid Cubs fan, I've really eyed with the free agency in this upcoming winter, and I was wondering what like different markets would look like for different players. I know the shortstop market's pretty bogged down with a lot of guys. I was wondering what your take was on it.
It's going to be very interesting to see what the Cubs do this winter, because part of me wonders if they're going to take a winter off and just understand that even if they go and get someone this year, you know, he's probably not going to make a whole lot of difference on next year's team. But I think they thought that with John Lester too. And when they brought Lester in, you know, it happened to coincide with the other, you know, the arrival of some of the other guys and the blossoming of some of the younger talent that they had. I don't think that's around this year. So it would surprise me a little if the Cubs go for a big splash. The shortstop market fascinates me. And it fascinates me, one, because Francisco Lindor, I think, is probably going to wind up with more than anybody else gets. And if you put Francisco Lindor back out on the market after the season he's having, I really do wonder how much less he would get. Is it 50%? Is it less than that? You know, based on the season he's having right now, you know, I understand he's by WAR like a 2-win player, which is very interesting. Speaks to WAR a little bit, I think. But you look at who's actually having the best year this year, and it's Carlos Correa by a long shot. Like Carlos Correa is at the top of WAR leaderboards, you know, Fangraphs and Baseball Reference. He's having a really, really good season. He's also Carlos Correa, and you know, I think there was George Springer, but there's still this weird Astro stigma, and Correa being as outspoken as he's been, there are going to be some teams that just say, a guy like Trevor Story, who has been phenomenal in the past on both sides. You know, there are questions about his defense and his arm this year. He's not hitting quite like he was, and I think there are going to be teams, you know, like the Texas Rangers. Like I anticipate Detroit's going to be in on some shortstop this offseason, and Story seems to be a guy who makes sense there. And then there's Corey Seager, who I think, you know, when everything's even, Seager might be the best of the bunch, but he's just been all right this year. And there are questions about his durability long-term and questions about whether he can stick at the position long-term, or if he's better off at third base instead of shortstop. And then Javier Baez, to me, is just the biggest wild card of all. Like, he can be so amazing sometimes, and he can be so frustrating sometimes. And I think he's probably going to wind up on the kind of team that values a guy for the consistency of his inconsistency. What I mean by that is that Javier Baez goes through fits and starts, and he goes through slumps like Justin Upton. And then, you know, the other part of the time, like, he looks like the best player in the world, and he's always going to be a good base runner and a brilliant fielder, and does these things that win you baseball games. And there are teams out there that understand that if they have the balance and don't look at Javier Baez as the guy who needs to be the dude on this team, but someone who's part of a bigger mix of players that can paper over those slumps for him, I think that's the best fit for him ultimately. That or Chicago.
Jeff, you got time for one more question?
Yes, I do.
All right, great. I picked a few Cubs, so I'll go with the Cardinals jersey.
I actually have time. You know what? If you guys want, I scheduled a radio hit for 7:40, so we can go like 12 more minutes if that's okay with you. You guys have been very kind to stick around, and I appreciate that, and want to answer as many as I can. except from Cardinals fans. You can turn around.
Cool. Thanks, John.
So yeah, I'm Zach. I had two questions. One is, what's your World Series pick this year? And my second question is, what's your favorite interview that you've ever done, player or anyone really?
Besides this.
Oh man, that's a really good one. Start of the year, I picked Dodgers Yankees. Right now, I'm picking Dodgers White Sox. I have so much respect for what the Giants are and what they've done this year. I was super on the Brewers early and feel like they have the formula and the manager, because I think Craig Counsell is brilliant at using what he has to make the World Series. To me, the biggest threat to the Dodgers is twofold. It wouldn't be the biggest threat if it's two, you idiot. The biggest threat to the Dodgers, I think, is the division series because it's 5 games, but that's also looking past the possibility that they're in the wild card, which is inherently a threat because it's a coin flip game, even though they would either throw Max Scherzer or Walker Buehler or potentially both, which would be kind of rad. The best interview that I've done, oh my goodness. I gotta think about that. Yeah, let me get back to you on that one, because that's a question I should have the answer for. And I'm gonna have to think about that one. Sorry. Good question. You stumped me.
All right. Back there.
Hey Jeff, my name is Jeremy. I have just 2-part questions really quick. Who's your favorite, or sorry, who's the most underrated player in the league? And can you answer it as Elmo?
Okay, I'm gonna do this because every day, and I mean every day, my 13-year-old wears me out about this. And you have to remember, we are in Kansas City and he is a Royals fan. And so here we go.
Did you know that Nicky Lopez has 3 wins above replacement? He's really good.
By the way, but nicely done.
Wow. All right. Right here.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Pranav. I have 2 questions. So the first one has to do with the MLB's lack of a salary cap. So I'm from Seattle. I'm a Mariners fan. Our name is pretty much synonymous with mediocrity for as long as we've existed. And even though Seattle's technically a big market, we very much function like a small market team. So instead of making flashy signings and trades, we're often stuck with the draft and develop kind of strategy, much like small market teams. And as you know, smaller market teams tend to struggle in winning championships just because they don't have as much money to spend. I think the last one, small market team that ended up winning was Kansas City. I think that was like a really long time ago, right? Well, let's just take a look at all the teams that have won after Kansas City. Like what, 6, right? So it's very, very small chance. And I just wanted to ask you, like, what would you think, a salary cap would have on the impact of making sure that it's a level playing field for all the teams?
Well, can I turn this question around on you actually and ask you what you think a salary floor would do in terms of getting those smaller market teams to actually pony up and pay players like they should?
Sure. I mean,
I'm sorry. I sit here at the idea of the salary cap and understand how alluring and attractive it is to a disillusioned small market, or in your case, big market that spends like a small market fan. Like, it is a giant Snickers bar that you just want to go and bite because it tastes so good, but it's really bad for you. And as somebody who sits here and talks about not how baseball is the greatest game because we figured out this formula where 60 feet 6 inches from the mound and 90 feet between bases, and in a regularly shaped outfield that's different everywhere somehow comes together magically. That's all true. But if you have a bunch of terrible players on the field, then the game is not the game. And so to me, the lifeblood of the game is the players. And if the players don't have a system in place through which they get compensated fairly and through which they get compensated to the best of their abilities, I don't feel like that system is working. And in the salary cap where we have the like in the NFL or like in the NBA where you just have like a set amount. The NBA is a little different because you can go over, you can get luxury tax penalties, et cetera, et cetera. But a hard cap system, I just don't think works. If you're talking about a salary cap, I am not fundamentally opposed to the idea of a salary cap because I think there's an argument to be made that a cap system with certain levers in place actually could be more beneficial to players than the current system right now. I think you can write it up such that players are compensated in the correct and proper way. I don't, though, think that a salary cap system is a panacea by any means either, because the general nature of baseball is that October's kind of a crapshoot, right? And that teams like Tampa Bay, which I think inarguably is one of the 2 or 3 best run teams in baseball right now, somehow can wind up with home field advantage in the American League throughout the playoffs, and perhaps this year, home field advantage through the entirety of the playoffs with one of the most piddling payrolls that we've seen in years. How do they do that? Because they do things the right way. So having little money and winning, it's not a mutually exclusive thing. You can do it. You got to do it right. But I think there's a happy medium that exists without a salary cap being in place to allow for that to happen more. Ultimately, in the end, what it comes down to is how much does your owner want to spend? How much does your owner want to win? And I think if there were an environment that forced teams and owners to spend more money, then it would be something that in the long run would be healthier for baseball and would lead to more competitiveness among the teams that you're talking about. I see the gap in money being not an individual year problem where you look at an individual season and say that this team is not going to be good because they don't spend. But to me, when you don't have the financial, I'm not even going to say ability because they all have financial ability. When you don't have the financial might that you're spending, your margin for error shrinks significantly. And that, to me, the biggest part of money is that it affords you the ability to go out and take more risk.
All right. I think we're going to take like one more maybe quick question. So if anyone has like a question that can be answered in like a minute or less.
I'm not doing Elmo again, you assholes.
All right. And then we'll let you go. Thank you so much again, Jeff, for doing this.
Of course, guys, of course.
Hey, Jeff.
God, we really started off with the one woman in the room, didn't we? This is incredible.
There's a few more that have now raised their hands.
All right. Ladies, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Danny. I was going to ask if you could say something nice about the Mets because I really need to hear it right now.
I can say, you know what I can say? I can say a lot of nice things about the Mets, actually. I think Pete Alonso's been fantastic this year, and that he is both in playing, in attitude, in just in representing the organization well, the kind of person that they need. Francisco Alvarez is a dude and is going to be really, really good. And that Brooklyn team that has him and Mauricio and JT Ginn, and on and on, like their farm system, even after trading Pico Armstrong, it's very top heavy. Like they need to develop more depth, but that top has a chance to be really good. I think the fact that a number of their hitters have stunk this year means that just because of the way typically that regression works, they're going to regress positively toward the mean, and we're not going to see this same sort of mediocre offense that we have. But there's a lot of issues with the Mets right now, and a lot of questions that need to be answered and a lot of tough decisions that need to be made, whether it's QOing Michael Conforto and Noah Syndergaard, whether QO is even going to exist in the same form. Like there are a lot of things that they need to do. And the scary part is this was like their year, really their year to take advantage of the Braves with Acuña out, with Soroka out, with with Marcelo Zuna out. Like they were there for the taking and they didn't take.
Cool. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate everyone's curiosity, and yeah, I really do talk a lot. So all the people who didn't get their questions answered, if you want, my DMs are open on Twitter, and you can drop a line there and I'll try and get back to you as best I can. No promises, but I'm usually okay if you don't go on to Twitter in my DMs and like ask me to roast you, because that's stupid.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff.